With the whole pandemic going on currently, I found it astonishing how there is little to none information being given out to the general public right now about the importance of diet and exercise and weight management with to help combat the COVID virus. Not directly, but secondarily by keeping up your immune system, right? We are currently seeing, a lot of people that are, passing away from the COVID virus, but most of them are generally unhealthy people, right? And all of this unhealthiness that we see, especially in in more populations of low socioeconomic status like Hispanics and African Americans and stuff like that. I like I said, I can't believe how there's no little to no one saying how it is important to keep a healthy immune system by keeping your weight in check, having a good diet, and exercising, right? The reason I started thinking about this was because this morning I stumbled upon a article on Yahoo that where Gabrielle Union, Dwayne Wade's wife, opens up about her hair loss during in vitro fertilization treatment, I think, right? So if you don't know what that is, that's basically just when they kind of, I guess, pump you with a bunch of hormones, so that way you have a better chance of being able to have a baby. I don't know the reasons exactly why she's doing that, but the point is that she started mentioning how she was losing her hair, and she wanted other people to know that that this does happen with in vitro fertilization. So that in itself got me thinking about one thing, about how I remember when I used to work in a certain hospital, they were big on these gastric bypass surgeries. And where we live currently, it was like the main hospital to where people would go and get these surgeries, right? And so I used to work in the ER, night shift, right? And so countless of times, every day almost that I worked, we would get one of these patients coming in at 2 a.m., 1 a.m. with severe stomach pains, right? One person in particular, I remember how she came in, she was in so much pain from the gastric bypass surgery, which she had a while back, a few years back. So I remember, I was talking to her, and I was starting her IV, and I was giving her some medications and stuff, and I remember she looked at me and she's like, "Hey, can I ask you something?" I was like, "What's up?" And she's like, "Did I make a mistake?" I was like, "Made a mistake as far as what?" And she says, "Did I make a mistake in getting this surgery?" Right? And I didn't know what to say, right? Because at that point, I had only been a nurse for a few years, not too many as far as nursing years go. So I didn't really know what to say. I was a young kid at that point. And but it seemed to me that there was a pattern. Like I said, every night there was a patient that would come in with severe stomach pain, and either had a complication from the surgery, or they ate something that they weren't supposed to eat that is prohibited in these types of surgeries, right? Depending on what specific type of surgery you get, then like there's more prohibited stuff that you can or cannot have. The reason I'm mentioning that is because one of the things that I saw these people doing, these people that were getting these surgeries, it's not because they necessarily needed the surgery. Most of them, yes, were obese, but a lot of them were barely on the edge where they needed this surgery, right? You have to meet all these qualifications. I think you even have to go through a psych eval to get this surgery done. But by the time I left that hospital, it was evident to me that the whole process essentially was like a I guess a front, right? It was so easy to pass all these things, even so much easier as where a family member even went through it, and she had no business being qualified for that surgery, and they qualified her, And keep in mind, medicine targets a lot of people, with Medicare, right? Medicare, if they can prove that the patient needs this, Medicare will pay. So a lot of these people are people of Medicare or Medicaid, right? People with with low socioeconomic status, typically uneducated, and they tell them about how good they're going to look once they get this surgery, right? And but I'm pretty sure they tell them about the bad things that might happen, but it's just mostly about what might happen during surgery, which they tell everybody whenever you're even going to have even something as routine as like a removal of your gallbladder, which, you might not wake up from anesthesia. We can damage your vocal cords when we intubate you, and you have to sign off on all these things. But I don't know how specific they are as far as letting people know about the bad things that will come if they get this surgery, right? Which to me, and the reason I started thinking about it was hair loss, right? A lot of these women, more than 50% of the women that I treated, or even men, had lost their hair, and you never want to see that because a lot of these people are young, and and I remember in one of the hospitals, also that I used to work in, they would advertise this to the public, even just in the lobby of they used to have like this before and after picture, of like the person when they were obese, and then afterwards how good they look because they've lost so much weight. But I always like to look at their hair, right? How their hair looks, and at the women especially, because women to lose their hair, especially at 30 or 40, is very rare, right? So I would always look at these pictures of the people that they were saying, how good they're looking now after the surgery. And I always like to look at how their hair looks, right? And in almost every picture, the women had thinning hair. Though it might not seem like a big thing to you or at the time, but Gabrielle Union just spoke about it, and it is a big deal, right? Because of what it signifies. It just doesn't signify that you're losing your hair. It signifies that you are not absorbing the nutrients needed in your stomach because you've had half of your stomach cut out, that you need to, to keep your hair, right? Like your keratin and your vitamins and all this stuff, it's not being absorbed. Therefore, your hair starts to fall out. And so, this surgery for people with obesity, is kind of, people see it as like this easy way out to fix, them being overweight. But the point of this video that I wanted to make is medicine, most of the time, is going to mess you up, and that includes this surgery, and that includes the problem that this surgery is trying to fix. So I went back and because I remember I had watched the documentary, was it Food Inc? this documentary about meat, right, on Netflix, and they were talking about how in the farms they used to give antibiotics to these farm animals, right, to keep them from having like infections, stuff like that. But the farmers start noticing that the more you gave antibiotics to these people, I mean to these animals, like pigs and stuff like that, the more they gain weight. So therefore, they start giving these antibiotics to these animals, even though they didn't need them, just to make them gain weight. These chickens, right, to have them be more meaty, I guess, so that way they can sell more. And so the misuse of antibiotics in just the food industry is widespread. So then I decided to also look at the link between antibiotic use, the rise of antibiotic use, and obesity, right? And I found two articles by the Scientific American. One of the articles is called Antibiotics Linked to Weight Gain. And this article, is from 2012. And then the other article that I found was The Obesity Plague and Antibiotics. Can the growing obesity epidemic be linked to overprescribed antibiotics? And then the other one, it's changes in the gut microbiome from low-dose antibiotics cause mice to weight gain. Similar alterations in humans taking antibiotics, especially children, might be adding to the obesity epidemic, right? And this is something that most people never think about. They don't think they care until they have a kid. Or even if they do have a kid, they don't care because they see the antibiotics as a good thing. They see it as, I guess, the bad the good outweighs the bad, right? So with these articles, what they say is basically that there has been so much over prescription of antibiotics since since when antibiotics first started being used back in, I think it says here, let me see, ever since the 1950s. There was an article in 1950s called the plague of overweight. So ever since then, there has been, there might be a correlation between antibiotic use and obesity. We already know that farm animals get it, regularly to make them gain weight. So why would we think that it wouldn't do the same to a human? And as far as the mechanism, as far as how this works, is basically the antibiotics, right? Antibiotics is an anti-life, antibacteria medication, and unless you're targeting a very specific bacteria, most of the time people get what's called broad spectrum antibiotics, which kill everything, right? It's like a bazooka to kill an ant, right? So you take these antibiotics, they essentially destroy your gut biome, to where this the article says how the farm animals essentially gain weight because since the bacteria are not breaking down all of these products that are coming into the gut, it's getting absorbed, right? And these farm animals are thus gaining weight because of it. So it's a very unpopular opinion, because people, especially now with the COVID thing, think medicine is always correct, right? Especially with people just waiting on a miracle, i.e. the vaccine, to come and save them from this coronavirus. But the fact is that the answer for the coronavirus is not in some lab, it's not in a vaccine. It's in the way you live your life, the way you consume food, and the way you if you have an active lifestyle or not. And it's something that I've been trying to say since the very beginning, right? especially with the government basically telling everybody to stay inside, essentially, and fining people for being at parks and for being active, when we know that UV light, essentially, and nobody talks about this, UV light essentially kills the coronavirus, right? So if you're outside exercising and you're getting, some kind of UV light by the sun, then essentially you'd be more safe than if you were inside your house, trapped, with the air conditioning, I guess, recycling everybody's, airflow in and out. So that's kind of what I wanted to address in this video. The link is there, like I said, and I'm guessing the big pharma has tried to do their best to keep that under wraps, right? And that's why you almost never hear about it. You almost never hear about people talk about the bad side of medicine. They always want to say Dr. Fauci and all these people are can do no wrong, right? And I just want you to know that doctors only know what we know currently. They're not these like I guess deities that know exactly what everybody wants them to know, right? Most of the time they're just following algorithms, right? And they have so many patients that, and it's not their fault. Sometimes they have so many patients that they have to rely on the algorithms to tell them what to prescribe. But like who was it? Socrates said, right? All I know is that I know nothing, right? And the good doctors will know that most of the time they're going to cause more harm than good. And the first rule, I guess, of medicine and the Hippocratic oath that people take when they swear, to be a doctor in this country, they get sworn in, is do no harm, right? And it's easy to say do no harm when it's obvious, but it's hard to say to actually do no harm when it requires a little bit more critical thinking, right? So that's one of the things that I want to talk about in this video today, that people have to take their health into consideration, and not rely on outside sources like surgeries or antibiotics to fix them, to help them get over this virus. They have to, I guess, think of it like a military, right? Or a country. You have to be preemptive, and you have to always think that you might be on the cusp of getting sick. One of the things that always kept me going is I used to work in a ICU, and I would always see young people with neurological disorders that would come in, and I would say these people don't have the chance to even just run outside. So that I would get home and I would go for a run, and I'd exercise, because to me it's like I get to do this. I don't have to do this. I get to. These kids, these young people here, with certain neurological diseases, they can't. They can't be outside. They can't just simply go for a walk or for a run. So that's kind of always helped me with that. So always, always ask questions, and always keep learning about your own body, and don't think just because some person of authority tells you this is the correct thing for you, i.e., people with weight problems trusting that the doctors can, have their best interest in mind. Most of the time, the doctors just want to get paid, man. And I don't want to say that that's most doctors, but these surgeons sometimes they'll get you through the system so you get these surgeries, so they get paid. and people give you antibiotics so you're happy and you give them a better rating. If people don't get antibiotics, it's gone to the point right now where if people don't get antibiotics, they get upset. They want antibiotics to be given to them. They want this receipt or this prescription that tells them, take this and you'll be healthier. Anyways, that's all I have for today. We'll see you guys later.